Hello lovelies and welcome back to my channel. I hope you're all enjoying spooky season. I thought I would do a tag today. This is a tag to the wonderful Silvia over at Fairlight Tarot, whose channel I really love. She put together a fantastic tag called Beloved Monster Decks. So she's taken 10 famous monsters and she's given prompts around each for us to allocate decks of each, and I love that. It fits in perfectly with the time of year. So if you can hear me over the sound of traffic driving through water outside, I'll begin. Just Google what's happening with the weather in the UK at the minute and you will know why there is the sound of water outside. The first prompt is the Frankenstein, a collage deck that is misunderstood but has a heart of gold. This, I think, is one of the most commonly misunderstood mass market collage decks on YouTube. Whenever I hear anybody talking about the Uncommon Tarot, they normally say, oh yeah, I don't like that collage deck. I've heard so many people say the sentence, I love collage decks, oh, but not the Uncommon Tarot. And I just don't get it, guys. I just don't get it. I mean, first of all, the box, it's like not too much. It's got magnetic closure. It's good quality. It's got this beautiful silver inside. The edges of the deck are gilded in silver, which I think a silver gilding is really unusual. It's got a great little guidebook. I don't get why this deck isn't as loved as other collage decks. Sometimes it has a slightly claustrophobic feel. It reminds me a little bit of the Muse Oracle. It's got like an overlay of I don't know, like a shimmer, like a shadow or a mist overlay on the art, which can sometimes make it feel a little bit suffocating, but I just think that adds to the general vibe of it. It's got a similar vibe to the Stretch Tarot as well. This feels like one that I could take out to do a soul story investigation in a haunted house with me. It feels layered enough and witchy enough, and it's got the right energy for it, and it's to do with this glorious artwork. I love it. I honestly do not get why this is so misunderstood. So this is definitely my Frankenstein. All of these images pieced together to create this sort of deep and evocative energy of a tarot deck. I just love it. What is not to love in these images? Look, just fantastic. So it's one that I definitely want to work more with in 2024. I'm making my plans already for 2024 and I'm really excited about them. And this deck is just realising going to come into that. The more I look at it, the more I think, yeah, this is going to fit in with my plans for 2024. But what do you think, guys? I think it's lovely. That light better. I've just closed my blind a little bit. I think we had a little bit of shimmer. But there we go, look at this. So, a collage deck that's misunderstood. The Uncommon Tarot, and it's mass market. I mean, come on guys, it's mass market. I think that's just an amazing deck. These are the backs. Cardstock is great. Yeah, what's not to love? So the next prompt is the Dracula, a deck that is sensual and sophisticated. And for me, when I think of Dracula decks and like sensual decks, that kind of sort of dark gothic love story, I think of this one, the Tarot de la Nuit. I just do. It's definitely a sensual deck. Would I call it sophisticated? Perhaps not so much sophisticated, but definitely sort of Dracula sensuality is held within this deck. I just think it's wonderful. It holds that kind of energy of vampires and that sort of sexy gothic Dracula feel, don't you think? So of course it is well renowned as a very body beautiful deck, and yes it is. I mean, look at this is just pure Dracula through and through, and it is, but I quite like it for that. I'm more than happy to go with the deck with like its body beautiful vibes. Do I look like any of these people in this? No. Is this deck diverse in any way? No, it's not. But I think it does its own thing. It does do that Dracula aspect just really well. If that was not sensual, sophisticated in a Dracula way, I just don't know what is. And the backs of the cards look like this. Everything about it, including this sort of grey purpley hue. It's just got that sensual vibe, doesn't it? I mean, look at that King of Cups. Very beautiful. The next deck, number 3, is for the Werewolf, a deck that is best used in a full moon. And this, guys, is literally my deck that I use in a full moon and a new moon. This is probably one of my most consistently in use decks ever. This is the Moon Oracle by Caroline Smith and John Astrop. I've got a few videos on my channel about this deck and how I work with this deck. I've got videos on my channel giving readings for the collective moon readings with this deck as well. You've all seen it, I'm sure. So you've got the 3 sections of the deck. You've got all of the moon positions for each element. So you've got water moons for each position, earth moons for each position, you've got fire moons for each position. So that's the biggest section of the deck, and it's just this beautiful sort of graphic artwork. You've got keywords to work with, you've got the position of the moon highlighted here at the base. I don't find this deck at all confusing to work with because I use the Seven Sisters spread in the book. You've got all the moon dates as well that you need in the book to work with it. Without using the Seven Sisters spread, I don't think I would really know how I would work with it. But with that spread, it's perfect for me for full moon and new moon readings. Then you've got Moon Mansion cards as well that are all numbered. Again, you've got keywords on them. So you've got a number of Moon Mansion cards, and I just love this art style so much. I love it. I think the artwork's just incredible. Look at this. And then finally, the smallest section of cards is the 12 moon goddesses. So with the Seven Sisters spread, you end up pulling one of these for that period that you're working with. So it puts energy into the reading that you've pulled. So it's just lovely. I really love it. The backs look like this. They've got kind of a hidden image in there. It's just lovely. It's a fantastic deck. But before I move on, this is kind of one I just couldn't resist. This could be a misunderstood collage deck as well. So it's kind of Frankenstein and Werewolf, because it's one of these really sort of pieced together photo manipulation collages with cheesy sentence on there, like you can see exactly what it is, but you've got all the full moons, so I just couldn't resist showing it. But to be honest, guys, when I have come to use this, and I found this secondhand on eBay, I think I paid like £2 for it, but sometimes if I just need grounding, because I use the moon for grounding work, this is such a nice deck to come to, and at times it's really lifted me where other decks just couldn't. It's a little bit misunderstood as just a cheese factor but for me it's been more than that. It's felt really great for within my grounding practice. The next prompt is the Grim Reaper, a deck that feels very final and unmoving. I've got 2 for this as well. So the first one, I couldn't help but think of the Somnia straight away. I mean, look at the image on the box for a start. All you need is for an arm the other side of that horse to pick up like a big sickle, and you've got the Grim Reaper there. So one of these shrouded figures in the Somnia Tarot, and the horses all draped in cloth, it does have a very Grim Reaper feel, and it does feel very unflinching in that energy and in its messages. I have loved this one though with Into the Lonely Woods. You wouldn't think the 2 would go together, but that can soften this one up. But I just generally think the Somnia as a whole does have sort of Grim Reaper vibes to it. It's great for this time of year, especially going into late autumn, I think, and early winter, because it's got such a cold, unmoving feel to the deck. I mean, look at this, all the ladders going up, which I love. So yeah, the Somnia, definitely Grim Reaper vibes for me without a shadow of a doubt. But the second deck that I wanted to share, which might be a bit more surprising, but I have my reasons for this, for the Grim Reaper, is the Rider-Waite tarot deck. Now this is a yellow box. This is the one I actually pull general readings with. I just love this deck so much. But it feels final because if I'm using a deck like this with different imagery, and I think it was Thea that spoke about this before, Sometimes, and I'm sure lots of us do this, we'll look at a card and our head will automatically translate that into the Rider-Waite image. I can't help it. I just do it all the time. I'll lay the cards out and at some point in the reading there'll be a flash to the Rider-Waite. It's like there's a history line of cards behind it, and it always stops with the Rider-Waite. You will go through Page of Cups in your head that you've seen before, and it finishes with, oh my gosh, I thought that was a Page of Cups for a minute, I nearly squealed, but it always finishes with this image. This is the final resting place in your head. Does that make sense? It's like a sub-narrative going on underneath. It doesn't matter what deck you're working with, there is a sub-narrative standing in the shadows, a little bit like the Grim Reaper of the Rider-Waite. And if I sometimes think to myself, is tarot scary? Is tarot spooky? Should I be working with tarot? Don't forget, guys, I am from a Christian background. I never think yes. I never think yes. But when that thought does cross my mind, I always think of this deck as these cards as the cards that would be the cards that I shouldn't be playing with. It's the traditional imagery of this that makes me think, oh my gosh, am I getting myself into trouble? These are the cards that seem to hold that sort of place in my mind, that shouldn't I place. And it does feel like something standing in the shadows waiting to pounce sometimes if I'm in that mindset. It's never, say, an image of this deck that comes into my mind. It's always this imagery, this classic tarot imagery. And I'm absolutely certain that if you found somebody that really didn't like tarot and wasn't involved in tarot at all, and they were scared of tarot, and you asked them to describe the images that they get in their head when they think of tarot, it would be this deck, I think. So yeah, for that reason, for it being the final stopping place of our minds, and for scare factor, the Rider-Waite deck. I hope that's not too controversial. The next prompt is number 5, the creature from the Black Lagoon. So a deck that loves water but is not afraid of getting dirty. And for me, that getting dirty just made me think of children playing outside in the dirt. And when I think of water, I think of the Stolen Child tarot, but it's also very woodland based as well. You've got these children dressed up in animal skins, playing in the dirt, hiding in the woods, sitting up in trees and on the beach. So it is a deck for me that does love the water, as you can see here, but also is in the woods too. If I was to pick the elements I feel this deck is, it's water and earth, without a shadow of a doubt. Look, you can see it here, water and earth. It doesn't feel like fire, this deck, at all. The water in this deck would put any fire out. A lot of the skies are disrupted, or you just get sneaky peeks of the skies. It's a lot more like this. It's enclosed, it's at earth level, it's in undergrowth, or it's in the ocean. Like even this bird imagery, look, there's very limited sky behind them. It's more like this, but it also does have a lot of water, I think, within it. So yeah, it's definitely a deck that loves the water but isn't afraid of getting dirty. So for prompt number 6, we've got the Freddy Krueger deck. This made me laugh. So a scruffy deck that has a terrifying sense of humour. And even though we have a zombie prompt later on, the zombie tarot didn't make my zombie prompt. It made the Freddy Krueger prompt, because this deck does have a fantastic sense of humour. However, it's also a bit scruffy. I mean, look at this. I think just the colour palette of the deck, just the fact that, you know, that there's bones with meat hanging off it. You've got imagery like this. It kind of feels like it's been dipped in tea bag stains. It's a little bit scruffy around the edges, but it's really funny the way it depicts the cards. I never thought I would buy this deck, but it's my go-to deck to pair with the Chucky Tarot. I just love using the Chucky Tarot with this, which I say every time is a inspiration from the fantastic Saturnarium, who is no longer making videos on YouTube, which is sad. She showed that pairing years ago, and I just used those two decks together ever since. So it's definitely got Freddy Krueger vibes, even though I know it's zombies. But like I said, it didn't make the zombie deck, which is a bit odd, but just felt more Freddy Krueger. I think it's the sense of humour. in it that got me for this one. I mean, look at this. I love that. So yeah, my zombie tarot made it into the Freddy Krueger position for the monster decks. Spooky backs if ever I saw them. So, having talked about the bonded pair of the zombie tarot with the Nicoletta Ciccone tarot, we come to prompt number 7, which is the Chucky, a doll-like deck that might stab you in the back. And here it is, the aforementioned Nicoletta Ciccone tarot. The artwork is very doll-like, but boy does this deck pack a punch. And paired with the zombie tarot, it's been one of probably my most healing tarot combinations of all time. And let's just put them together. I use this deck for healing family trauma, escaping toxic families. What I use this deck for is, you know, the doll-like facade of what a toxic family system might be trying to present with the reality, the shadow side of what's going on underneath the surface. And it has just helped tremendously. The Nicoletta Ciccone isn't just fluffy dolls. It does have that underlying energy that even if you're not aware of what's going on, there is still a vibe that there might be something not quite right. And then the zombie tarot brings it into stark focus. So the two together, I think it's not light and shadow at all. It's kind of pretending to be light but with an under vibe with shadow, and for that it just works so brilliantly. So we've got here the Freddy Krueger with Chucky combined, and I absolutely love this bonded pair combination. It's been brilliant for me for healing my own escape from toxic family systems. Oh, it's just, I honestly, guys, this deck at times was the one thing that got me through some of the darkest moments of my life, and I've found this combination astounding. So I'm putting the zombie tarot away as we get to prompt number 8, which is the zombie. So for this, it says it's an airy deck that's hungry for brains. Now, I picked for this tarot as colour. It kind of feels airy in a claustrophobic way. Does that make any sense? Like, we start off with probably the least airy card that you've ever seen. But I think just this use of colour, it does sometimes feel like you're just floating through the air, like cloud spotting or looking down on oceans. It's open. Even when the colours don't feel airy, I think the imagery is incredibly open. And why is it hungry for brains? Well, I think delving into the depths of Ethel, oh my gosh, how do you say her name? Colquhoun? Should we just call it Ethel? Diving into the depths of her artwork and her occult studies, and linking the two together, her art practice, her colour studies with occult studies. It's rabbit holes that you could stay down for years to truly understand her concepts and what she was coming up with. She's definitely somebody for the coming year that I want to study. I mean, there's real links here to my own artwork. I mean, I do class myself as an art witch, so it's something that I do really want to study, and it's going to suck my brains out, I'm certain. It's definitely hungry for brains, but it's airy, hungry for brains, and I'm ready to feed my brain to this deck. Bring it on, bring it on. Prompt number 9 is the Pennywise the Clown, a deck that is deceivingly whimsical but is actually very intense. So you can basically take any Jasmine Beckett Griffith deck, I think. Yeah, I've found that any deck with Jasmine Beckett Griffith's artwork in, it looks like something you'd buy for a teenager or a young child. It's definitely got that childlike vibe about it. It's whimsical, definitely whimsical through and through, and yet you use them and then they're not light and fluffy and kiddie-like when you start to use them. I mean, look how whimsical this looks, and yet they're just not when you put them into a tarot practice. So there's any Jasmine Beckett Griffith deck, but then the other one that I really wanted to share for the Pennywise is this one, the Inner Child cards, a fairy tale tarot. This is Isha Lerner and Mark Lerner. This was one of my very, very earliest deck purchases, like within the first 6 months of starting to learn tarot. The cardstock is super thin, but I love that because it means you can shuffle them even though these cards are absolutely huge. And you can see what it does. It takes all these images from childhood stories and films and books and fairy tales and characters, and it puts it in this super sunny, colourful card. It does look so whimsical. Like you've got the yellow brick road there, got princesses in castles, you've got little gnomes, it's got mermaids in the deck, it's got gnomes, it's got fairies, all sorts of lovely things going on. Like you've got well-known children's tales depicted, the fairy godmother, mermaids as the hearts. It's just a really whimsical, childlike looking deck, and yet, boy oh boy, this deck can tell it to you straight. It really can. So much so that I had a go at pairing this deck, and if you've watched my channel for a while you will know the bonded pair I am about to pull out, what the other deck is. I put it with the Thoth. You would never in a million years think that these two work together, but let me show you what they're like together. So these two decks together have continually over the years blown my mind. And I think for them to work together, you can tell that the whimsy of the fairy tale tarot is perhaps more show than truth. I mean, look, you've got the beanstalk here, which came tumbling down, and the Tower card, which comes tumbling down, and the death of ego with the Emperor's new clothes. Things like this every single time in this deck. I just find it's just such an amazing combination. It's definitely a Pennywise card, and just look at the colours here. Look at this with this imagery and that, and the circle there and a circle there and a circle there. Just every time, I just love it so much. I could just keep doing this over and over. Look at this imagery with that shape, with this imagery with the diamond. Wow, amazing. Prompt number 10 is the Mummy, a deck that is covered in many layers. Brilliant prompt again. I realised with this I use mummy decks for my ghost hunting, although I don't like that term ghost hunting. I prefer the term soul stories. Ghost hunting feels like I'm tracking down spirits to hunt them out and demand they perform. That's why I change the titles of my ghost hunting videos to soul stories with tarot, because for me it's about seeing if I can find souls that are replaying or stuck or lost, and to give them a chance to speak via tarot. It's a lot more respectful and gentler, I think, than the term ghost hunting. And for those of you who've been watching the soul stories videos and saying that you love them, thank you so much. That's so encouraging. I've had the best fun, and like I say, there's more videos coming soon. But for those sort of encounters, a couple of decks came to mind that have just been perfect for that, and it's because they're layered. So the first is the Stretch Tarot. So by layered I mean not only have you got the actual tarot card meaning itself, but there is a key word in there, and the imagery adds another really deep layer that you can pull from. You know, there's lots going on. There's lots of different ways that if you meet a spirit, you can... They've got a lot of different layers here to be able to tell you the story that they want to tell. I mean, this card, if you watched Margaret's House video, which is my all-time favourite video I've ever made, who can forget this card coming out at the end of the reading that just had me sitting sobbing tears. And with that, you've got the imagery, you've got the tarot meaning itself, and you've got the keyword maternity. I think that moment with this card was one of my most profoundly layered tarot moments of all time for me. So this is a deck that I do pull because of the fact that I might need layers in the time that I'm using it, and it's just it's got to be top 5 decks, this one. It's got to be. But then recently as well, on my soul stories videos for this last spooky season week, I've been using this deck. easy to throw in my bag because it's in a tin, and like I said, we've been having a lot of rain in England, so I didn't want to risk my stretch tarot out and about in the rain. So it was a no-brainer for me to come to the Barbara Walker. I need to keep these cards out because these cards are from a recent soul story that I found down a haunted mine, which I haven't yet told the story of, so we'll leave those to one side. But with Barbara Walker, again, look, you've got tarot meanings, you've got keywords again, but you've got this incredible imagery which links to lots of different stories and gods and goddesses and apparitions and demons and monsters in the guidebook. So there's an awful lot of layers here to draw upon. Oh my gosh, I can't see this card without thinking of Hayden Hill Hall that we visited. Loads of layers, and it's the reason why this is the deck that I've used this week, all of this week. And now we're in Aston Hall. If you've seen the videos, you'll know what I mean. For me, as I'm doing these ghost hunting videos, if you want to call it that, the cards then take on other stories. They're getting an extra layer on top. Like I see this and I think of Mary Holt trapped in the attic room. And if you want to know what I'm talking about, if you haven't seen the video, go and see my video recently about the ghosts of Aston Hall. So they're becoming more layered as I use them in this way. And it just makes for one hell of a time when you're pulling tarot cards to find stories. So yeah, the Barbara Walker and the stretch. So that's it, guys. Those are all of my beloved monster decks. Thank you so much to Silvia for this. I'll leave all Silvia's links below. She's absolutely fantastic. I really enjoyed that, and I'll see you next time, guys. Bye.